So I think that's working, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's excellent. Welcome everybody to the Pond House and to our reading tonight. Delighted to have you here. It was a great fall day, wasn't it? Yeah. So, not raining. Gets nicer and nicer in the afternoon. It still is a little bit light into the evening, but darkness is coming. Yeah. Anyway, welcome. I want to make some thanks to different people that have supported the series. The City of Milwaukie, of course, without whom we would not have the series. So we're very appreciative of that. To the Letting Library. The Letting Library is closed, so some of you may know that. We are getting a new library, and so they've moved up to where the old Southgate Theater is, which we hope is about a year and a half while they start building the new library here. So we are going to have a new library here, which is great. So thanks to the Letting Library and also to the Milwaukee Poetry Series Committee. So as you know, you don't have something like this happen unless you have a group of people that are working on it. So could the committee members that are here, I think there are 3 of us that are here. I'm already standing. Dan's already standing. Emmett, could you stand? Thank you very much for working on this. I want to remind you about your telephonic devices. So if everybody could silence them, please, because we don't want to have them going off while Samiya is reading. A couple of things I will say. The clock that was up there on the wall is down because it was broken, and it was stuck at 6:25. So we didn't want to have Samiya up here. I think, oh, that's interesting. That clock is stuck. Well, in fact, it was stuck, so it's down. We do have a different sound system tonight. So you see 2 microphones up here, and we have different videographers who are Dan and myself. So I was trained this afternoon, and Dan just stepped up to the camera right now.
I was trained this very second.
He was trained about 5 minutes ago. But it looks like it's going to work, and it looks like it will be fine. So we are... The recording came on, so we are absolutely delighted about that. I have talked to a couple of people, and I don't know if you know that our readings are now on YouTube, so you can access them on YouTube, and we are very happy about that. And thank you very much. I want to thank you for coming up here and taking the front 2 seats without me saying, would you come up and take these 2 seats?
I'm not afraid of you.
Good. She used to work for me.
I wasn't afraid of you then either.
Probably true. Some things we have coming up. We are having an open mic on Wednesday, November 7th. So that's the next event, and that's going to be here at the Pond House, 7 to 8:30. You can sign up ahead of time for it, or just come and read. And then the next reader in November is going to be George Venn. So he will be here on the 2nd Wednesday of November. And you can tell me, what date is that?
14.
The 14th. So he will be here on the 14th. Let me ask, how many people are here at the Pond House for the first time? Anybody? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. We have a guest book, if you would like to sign it, because that gets you emails, invitations, knowledge about events that are going on. So it's back there, and if you would like to do that, that would be great. Short history of the Pond House. City of Milwaukie bought it when it came on the market 13 years ago now. Time flies because we're in our 12th season. And it was just about a year before this started. And very far-sighted city manager and city council. So this came on the market. It's adjacent to the library. It's a great location. And they envisioned it as something for cultural events and meetings and so forth. And that's the way it's turned out. So it's very used, and we're happy about it. We happen to be the first series or cultural event that came along. So we were really the first ones to use it, but there's a lot of other things that go on in here. So it's a great facility. Which brings me to our poet tonight. We have been looking forward to Samiya coming. Samiya was here before, so this is the second time she's read in the series 3 years ago. So that was a terrific reading. She holds a BA from the University of California, Berkeley, where she served as poet laureate. And she has an MFA from the University of Michigan, where she received 2 Hopwood Poetry Awards. In October 2017, she was awarded the Regional Art and Culture Council's Individual Artistic Fellowship in Literature in recognition of individual artistic achievement and excellence to sustain and enhance her creative processes. She's been the recipient of numerous awards, other awards, grants, fellowships, residencies, and is a founding organizer of Fire and Ink, an advocacy organization and writers festival for LGBT writers of African descent. In addition, her latest book, Field Theories, won the Oregon Book Award for Poetry this last year in 2018. So, we are delighted that she's here reading tonight. Would you join me in welcoming our poet tonight, Samiya Bashir? Samiya.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Can you hear me? Yes, we're good? Oh, you all look very wonderful out there. And there's almost a little peak of light, as you said, left over. I'm really grateful to be here again. It's been a fast 3 years and also a long 3 years. It's so much has happened, and I'm grateful to be right back here with all of you tonight. I am going to do something a little different. I'm going to open with a poem from the beginning and close with a poem from the end, but I am going to read tonight the sonnet cycle called Cornography. Apparently a movie is being made about John Henry, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And there's apparently been a lot of hullabaloo about this on the internet today, and I have not been on the internet today, but you know, the internet somehow leaks into your world anyway. Because somebody said something and mentioned these poems, and I realized I so rarely read them because it's a whole process. But as we're entering this new season, it feels like a nice time for a process. Right? So I will begin with a poem called Paleontology. I step from the airplane. My hair melts dead air. I walk quickly. Click clunk, click clunk, click clunk. Barbara Jordan, bronze and sober. The glasses poised, the last me I'll see for 3 more days, and 3 more days forever. Outside, I slow the click clunk to a 3-sound crawl, click, click clunk, and etc. I am a woolly mammoth waiting at the cab stand. I am a woolly mammoth stuffed into a cab. I bear the long silence of my own extinction through the rear view. My head on the back seat, horns akimbo. I melt dead air. Blame humans for the loss of large mammals like myself, a new study suggests. My cousin tuk-tuks my husk to a dry diorama. The radio blares, the tide is high. The radio sings, I'm gonna be your number one. And one quick detour for Tom, because the dark. One quick detour for Tom and the dark. This poem is called Planck's Constant. What else made sense but the push to climb one another, hand over hand, and grab at whoever was near enough? The season groaned on into November. Crows bled branch to sky. Stone upon stone upon stone towered toward a heaven that flushed its 3-day-old lie of bruise. Snowflakes threatened war. The moon split town and swore not to return for days. Your flicker and turn a lighthouse and a storm. At 5:45, the sun went down forever. So, what else made sense but to climb one another, hand over hand, and cleave to whoever was left, and near enough, and would. So, this series of poems is called Choronography. It's a sonnet cycle. It's 15 linked sonnets, and so you'll notice that the last line of one picks up as the first line of the next. The final sonnet is made up of all those first lines and speaks back. And a coronograph, so many of you kind of engaged them. I think, was it just this summer, or was it 17 years ago that we had an eclipse? And people were engaging a lot of coronagraphs. So what it does is it blocks out, I like to think of it as it blocks out the stars so you can see the shine, right? John Henry opens his mouth. I can tell your future too. Want to hear it? Most don't, and fine by me, ain't got nothing but time now, know how. Hands been full since day one, swinging, swinging. Was I born with it? The night I came shocked Mama and Daddy to the corners of our old dark quarters. Call washed down to the floor where I tore it, threw it, fists swinging and grasping for air. When I said, Mama, she dropped me clear to the floor and jumped back quick. Mama, I'ma be. But she dropped her head in her hands and cried, Papa, I'ma be steel, I started. I'ma die with my hammer and my, was I born with it? Mama, don't cry. I'ma be. In many versions of the legend, John Henry has a wife named Polly Ann. And after John Henry's death, quite often Polly Ann picks up the hammer and swings it like a man, right? And these sonnets are in conversation. It's Polly Ann and John Henry in conversation. And it's funny, I was asked about a class that I'm teaching right now called Writing Resistance. And you know, it was like, is this just about kind of political poetry or something like that? And I said, not exactly. I feel like there are a lot of ways we think about resistance. And one of the things as I kind of look back through these sonnets is the way the form of the work itself takes on the body of the speaker, and then how that changes as we move through. You'll see a particular kind of deconstruction and reconstruction from one body to the other. Here, Polly Ann jumps her broom. I swear I wasn't born to cry, so I'd be a lie if I say I wept when I left my mama's house. Like I know life up here would be hard scrabble rough. What's not? And I loved the blue he grew from his eyes and spread to the syrup sap dip of his dip step. And I loved how he loved mine. And how could I know he'd risk us? And for what? For what? Why build us a life here just to end it? I kept dry eyes. I swear I stood stronger than I looked. I stood fragile and heavy as a honeybee. So did he. A man's heart rocks like mine for the kind of love found and fed that tells him he ain't dead. John Henry's first real swing. I stood hungry, near dead, and the man said my hammer would give us shelter, keep us fed. That's what he said. But instead I was drove up these craggy mountain roads. I was gave another hammer and a crust of bread and not enough slop to anger my plate. I ate what I could. I practiced on wood. I split rocks as the nights stretched long. I chipped blocks of ice when I couldn't sleep, couldn't keep. Listen. Whether it kills me later or now, I'm gone. I know how. I know why. I got these 40 pounds of firebolt, the color of sorrow-smoked eyes, that I lift and drop. Lift and drop. Lift and drop. Lift and... Pollyann has an ordinary day. Lift and drop. Lift and drop. This baby and these bags of rags I wash day in and day out keep me on the useful side of madness. Stout as he stands, his tenderness caught me, cupped me, his stooped kisses fixed my flutter. Face it. All my time I spend picking up, putting down, moving things around, and still I can't drown out the whop, whop, whop of steel, of big men. Fast women got their scent up hot to how his hammer cuts quick the breeze. I'm useful. I'm my milking body and another slung around me like hard rock. I'm dreaming us laced, us dropped so low it sounds like shaking, feels like screams. Ain't neither. John Henry feels fate. Felt like shaking. Sounded like screams, wasn't nothing but hot air and hot noise coughing up hillside, coming bent over, double-jointed, wheezing vapors and threats. He rode a devil that whistled my name, John. John. That whispered of numbers and days, John. John. He rumbled up in that high saddle seat early on Friday morning, waxing his merchant smirk. He came to take us back down off this mountain back. I said I done been where I been and ain't going again. With my last breath, I'd drill that devil to death. I'd swing, step, or kick, but before I'd die, I'd try anything quick. Metal, stone, stick. Through the book, pornography is broken into thirds. After that first section, we come across Neil deGrasse Tyson, who says, dark things have a way of manifesting themselves. As we re-enter pornography, we're greeted by Tony K. Bambara, who asks, are you sure, sweetheart, that you want to be well? Pollyann fears her future. Where I fare between metal, stone, and stick, quick wages, quick drinks, quick talk, quick death, quick saves, fast friendships, laying quick odds to fast ends. Where I fare, I can't no longer tell. Comes a time when the look in a man's eyes says you ain't there. Nowhere. Says he's thinking of action and you steal your mind and think where you left your get busy shoes. Anything you ask is answered by movement and rush. So you move, you rush. You wonder all day if the cook looks nasty or the food don't taste clean. All of a sudden, does climbing hill full of my corn and collard sweetness not, well, what about what I was meant for? Exactly. John Henry tests his hammer's weight. What about what I was meant for? Swinging. Her, me, our son, our carpetbag home, was I swinging? Meant to live and work and fear nothing on cold nights we hold up huddled beneath her mama's wedding quilt getting warm. What about it? I tried to tell her, steel don't own me. You do, I'd say. I'm glad to do anything, but please don't ask me this. Takes more than heart to make a man, and these here hands and hers were all I'd want and need. Hammer and speed lead me so high I smell sea above the treetops swinging. But all I drill don't mean nil if I can't share it. Have to bear it alone. Pollyann cuts quick the breeze. Wasn't nothing but to bear it. Let him alone and act grown. Everyday threats swirl all up and down this hill, all dervish to swish my steps and scuffle me to the side, like what's me and mine ain't mine. Pies and cakes mount the tunnel's mouth, the same old sugarcane siren songs, with fresh lemonade, with sweet tea, with cherry wine, swig for a swirl. He stays too caught in his up and swing to taste that talcum swimming through shale dust to dot his lips and steal a kiss with every lift. But busy as I am, I notice. Every rosewater eddy, I see each germ blow past me, like I'm not even there. John Henry stakes his claim. This germ blew past like we weren't standing there. Him riding his machine like Orion coming for our throats. We dug this. Every spot was once our hands on rock. He come to take what we built and we ain't gonna let him. Not me, not my shakers, not this mountain we peeled, not none of us. He blew past us coughing hot air, hot noise like he don't know who opened this mouth. Lord, Lord. We ain't gonna let him take it. Not food from our mouths. Not what we make, what we push through, hand to mouth and keep pushing. Not everything. All he wants is all we have. If we let him choke his way to it, then who are we? Who? Polly Ann claims her stake. Who are we gonna be? We can choke or bust this yoke. Who are we gonna be? Preacher said we rode that train together. We promised we'd stay that way too, but that don't mean don't move when time comes for us to move, to stretch ourselves around each other, Lord, Lord, and just leave here. But say I say, let's go. Let's lift up and make life new. Say I knew I smelled danger and said so too. He'd ask, where would we go? What would we do? So when I knew I'd do whatever it was I could to blaze around or through that haze he caught. Get taught to swing that hammer if I had to, though everyone up here called me crazy. An astronaut, Mae Jemison, said, I always knew I'd go to space. And movement artist Keon Gaskin said, where you are is going to be really unsafe soon. Pornography. John Henry crosses the threshold. Everyone up here called me crazy, but I couldn't do nothing but what seemed right. Crazy to fight? Maybe. Maybe crazy enough to win. Every day I crouch down into that bend I know I might not creep out again. Tunnels eat men like penance, like payment for letting us through. I knew my life would be short, would be fast, but each shaft of light that snuck through the cracks I smacked in them walls kept me going and led me right back, swinging up this yap. And folks thought I was crazy trying to dream us up a future even if I couldn't see it through all that dust, those sudden shouts and screams. Polly Ann tastes victory through all that dust. Through sudden shouts and screams, them men slapped their backsides and busted their seams, jumping and hollering, yeah, yeah. Skirts kicked high, yeah, yeah. Necks dipped low, yeah, yeah. Steam shot straight to the sky. It knocked and it choked as that engine died down to a whimper could barely be heard through the change that crowed and cursed changing hands over wagers that pit a week's wages against whoever they thought could best this mountain. Only fools bet money on that man's machine. And I knew them fools needed to get on away from me. When everyone hollered quick and jumped back. When I watched him crack like steel-bitten stone. John Henry gets his big break. When my last steel bit cracked stone, I watched her run through the crowd to come celebrate. I opened my mouth to say, I beat him, but I stopped when the look in her eyes fell back, when it all went black, when I choked and spat, slumped across her lap and begged for water. And if I spoke, I said, baby, we won. If I could, I said, these machines can't run us down and out from all we built, broke, and spiked day after night. Baby, we did it. I tried to cup her face in my hands, but the tunnel's maw gaped bright, white, and her eyes went slow. And if I spoke, I said, Polly, baby, are you here? In this pitch black mouth. Haunting Polly Ann. Baby, are you here in this pitch black mouth? 'Cause I'm here, swinging. Just like I said I would be, swinging. And I won't never leave. Shh. You heard? They said that howl belonged to some old wolf ghost dead about 10 years now. Won't never leave here, swinging. I'll just wait and watch as you push through, swinging. Maybe you can help me too. They say ain't no way out of here but through, so I'm just swinging. Ain't got no time for no light me a candle kind of mood when I gotta strike firebolt to this same slate, swinging. Earn us our food for tomorrow, and shh. I can tell my future too. Want to hear it? Polly Ann haunts back. I can tell our futures too. Listen here. We weren't born to cry, I swear, but we'll still stand hungry, near dead, while the man says, lift and drop. Lift and drop. And baby, if it feels like shaking and sounds like screams, it ain't. We'll steal away stone quick from the sticks to wherever it is we're meant for. We'll swing too low, bear too much, too long, let loose them germs blowing past like we ain't here living. Who we gonna be? We gonna choke or bust yoke? Everyone will call us crazy, but we'll fly through all their dusty screams and we'll drill our last bits. They'll watch, but still they won't see. Not us, baby. Climbing this pitch black mouth. And Gwendolyn Brooks said, 10 minutes before you're dead, you're alive. I'm going to close with a poem for now. I think of it very much as a Portland poem because it was inspired by a poem written by Portland poet Zachary Schomburg. It's called At Harlem Hospital, across the street from the Schomburg. The only thing to eat is a Big Mac. Still, somehow we are carousel. We spin bodies to the wall and back. We are woman and man. We are surgeon and operation. We are everybody we love. We are inside them. We are inside and we are laughing. We are man and we will die too. We know that much. We are our own shadow. We are want of touch. We are woman and man don't look. We are curvature. Look. We are train. We are star. We are big, tiny spiders. We are crawling. We are biting. We are hungry. We are a stopped carousel. We are bodies dropped to the floor. We are shaking. We are our own. Still, somehow, we are laughter. We are the doorway out. We are, again, the doorway in. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Who would you say are the writers that influenced you?
Oh my goodness. Who would I say are the writers that influenced?
As a first question.
Oh goodness. I mean, that's a long list and it's ever growing. You know, pardon the schmaltz, but today my students influenced me, right? You know, sitting right back there is Lisa Steinman, who has influenced me since I got here. You know, I think about, we were talking about, we had at the school where I teach, we had this admissions event, and we had a bunch of high school kids who came out, and I was having dinner with them, and I talked to them about June Jordan, the poet, who was a really major influence on me, especially when I was younger, and then always. It's so funny, Lisa mentioned Paul Laurence Dunbar today, and that's something that I remember my mother used to read his poems to me when I was a little child, and that's something that definitely I think just stays in my circulatory system. I find whenever I ask or try to answer questions about things like favorites or influence, it's probably a different kind of answer all the time. You know, some days I'm going to say Adrian Rich. Some days I'm going to say Gwendolyn Brooks. Some days I'm going to say Fred Moten. Some days I'm going to say, and all of those I can say every day, and I can just keep going and going. I mean, I think one of the things I'm really grateful for is not aloneness, right? There are so many poets out there making so much life-sustaining beauty that I'm grateful for. And that's just, you know, today at not 6:25 p.m., right? There's also the 1,000 years before this minute, full of people that I'm really grateful for. Yeah. Any other questions?
Can you
Yeah.
explain the word cornography?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So cornography, so I was talking about a coronagraph, that instrument where you can kind of block the light of the star so that you can measure what's around it, right? And so cornography is that kind of a study. So it's the study of the stars, of the shine, of, you know, the kind of objects happening in space around a star, or our moon. We use it with the moon, as I was talking about with the eclipse. And because that sunlight is reflected, so we still need to block that light in order for us to see what's happening around it. So, you know, I think about that series of poems as exactly that. You know, I think we often think about that as the story of John Henry. I really think about it as the story of Polly Ann. I really think about it as the story of this woman who's been reconfigured to suit whatever the mood of the day. You know, sometimes, you know, she's a little blonde trollop. Sometimes she's a girlfriend. Sometimes she's a wife. Sometimes she's a black woman. Sometimes she just changed, you know, in song after song and story after story. And, you know, the one where she kind of holds on to her strength and carries that forward is one that always comes back to me, and is one that I think about a lot in terms of how all of us kind of figure out how not just to kind of survive in the world and whatnot, but, you know, maybe survive maybe even kind of like make great space and great lives even when the world insists on shining something over here. Like this here, this is the star. This is the legend. You're standing in the way, right? And I disagree.
Can you give other examples besides, like, I mean, for John, besides John Henry and his wife?
Examples
Another
of?
kind of example of the cornography, of a couple or cornography or what?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. So I was in class right before this, so that's what's kind of stuck in my head. But I had students bring in this. It's midterm now, and so I always have my intro students work on this project, this good poem project. So there's this idea of what is a good poem, the most unanswerable question, right? But they all have to go out and find one, and really they have to find a few dozen and then give us a list and then choose one that they break apart and dig into and tell us why they've decided that that's a good poem. And someone brought in Sylvia Plath's poem, Lady Lazarus, and then of course, as happens when a whole conversation started, right? And the conversation then focused on the life rather than the poem, and a lot of that really was kind of like, well, first, the life versus the poem. I'm going to want to block out the life so I can deal with the poem right now, because all I'm seeing is suicide, 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 suicide. But meanwhile, she lived for years and years and years and years before she died, first of all, right? And then there's the relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I think that's another example. I was talking about certain poets. Sometimes, at least in my day, what so often happened is you have, if you have a heterosexual couple, a man and a woman, and they're both poets, and they love each other, and they get married, and then the woman has to become a wife, and the man becomes a poet still, right? And that would be another example of one of those moments, and sometimes you can dig yourself out of that, and sometimes you can't, or don't, or won't, But yeah, I think a lot of times, many of us are quite a culture to kind of step into the backlight, even if we have so much to bring forward.
Samiya, one of the things I found pleasurable about your reading tonight was it seems like you took a central theme, a central narrative, a congruent narrative. And what I liked about it was, oftentimes I think when we hear poets, we hear two different voices. We hear the voice in the narrative, but we hear the poet who's reading it, we hear a different voice. And you're trying to marry the two. But it seems like with each poem, the voice that we're hearing in the poem was actually your voice. They were together, and it created a kind of symmetry that made the storytelling more authentic. Because I just felt like I was hearing, the person, the voice in the narrative. Do you think about that when you write your poetry, or do you do poetry where your spoken voice is different from the voice in the narrative?
That's interesting. So I think I don't, it's funny, I said that I really don't read that series very often. And there's something about it too that kind of kicks up in energy, right? It sticks there afterwards. And so I don't really, I also don't write narrative very often. And when I do, there's, I was talking about the form of those poems, the sonnet, but then how it breaks itself apart, like it keeps its, really it keeps its line, et cetera, but it breaks up. And I think about narrative that way too. I think of it in kind of fractured flashes. And so even if I think about other poems in that book that might have bits of narrative within them, it's bits of narrative within them, which is really more just observation to me than just storytelling. I feel both like I'm absolutely not a storyteller and like I'm sure that's what I'm always doing, right? I think both of those things probably live simultaneously. Yeah, thank you. But as for the voice, I mean, I think one of the things is, I was joking with students again who were just like, oh, my obsessions, etc. I don't know, I have to start writing about something else. And I'm just like, good luck with that. Yeah, do. First, yes, you have to write about something else. But also, you'll probably notice after a couple of decades, you look back and you've kind of been writing about the same thing forever and ever and ever. And so to an extent, I'm sure they are all my voice. And I hear Pollyann so clearly, me, in my ear, right? And I hear John Henry really clearly in my ear, but again, that's my ear, which is connected to my voice. So I'm sure that impacts the coming out of it, yeah. Thanks.
Well, following up on Ellen's question, when do you write?
When I can, usually in the dark. And so, the season, winter is coming, right? Yeah, I kind of, there's a lot of catch as catch can. I feel often like a thief, like I have to steal time from everywhere and everything and everyone, and it feels hard sometimes to do that because I don't like stealing, and I do like mostly things and people, all of that. But I'm not a rote kind of person. Every morning is different than the morning before. Every night is different from the night before, which is a wonderful adventure, but also it doesn't really lead to any kind of discipline time thing. And I find when I do try to force myself into like at 6 p.m. you're going to write, man, it comedy ensues, is what I'll say. And so usually it's at night, because there's a sense of having to let the rest of the day go to bed. And that's when I can kind of hear, if that makes sense.
Can I ask one more question? Because I'm curious. You refer to them as sonnets. The majority of the sonnets usually will have some kind of metrical work going on. In those series of poems, were you thinking metrically? Were you using any kind of stress? Or did you give yourself license to just write the line without a metrical device?
Yes, no, yes, no, yes. Yes, I mean, the lines are written in syllabics. They're not, and so the way I thought about the foot and the meter was really following more of a blues form, quite frankly. I really, in building those poems, there was an essence of kind of, it's so funny. I happen to think about something like iambic pentameter. It's like iambic pentameter, it sounds like hip hop to me, right? And so then, thinking about working with the lines in this way, it was really much more of a jazzy blues space. And so the stresses are very different. When I have to come to those whispers that John, I'm pulling rather than kind of keeping it set. So what I did was I kept myself really strict on the syllabics. I kept a general kind of movement, but I wanted to not lock myself in. And I actually I unstitched a lot of meter because it didn't feel like John,
So are there any more questions?
Yeah.
Would you read this?
Absolutely. Crow meditation. So I kind of love crows a lot. But because they're smart and smart alecky. And, kind of unreliable narrators. And, and yet this meditation, I feel like there's something so unreliable about the space we're moving through right now. And so this is a meditation that, if I ever had words tattooed on me, it would probably be that poem, right? Because that's something that I just feel like I need to say again and again. And it goes like this. Dip, fevered neck. Plant, split-lipped, calm. Spit wonder. Smile. Starve dark fried. Be light. Thank you.